Hello everybody. So this finally is the finale tutorial for doing the lead sheet. So starting from here, I'm going to click on the setup wizard, and as you all have been through before, you see what you get on this first window, which you can decide on what it is that you want if there's an ensemble that is already put together, and of course the document style. I'm going to go with the engraved style and leave this as it is letter size for the score, page size, and the part. Well, we don't need to deal with that anyway. We're just doing really just the full score. So I'm going to click next here. And for this window where you need to set up your instrumentation, we are just going to click on blank staff and click add. So now I have the blank staff, which will be used in my lead sheet. I will click next, and now I can put in, of course, the title and all of this other interesting stuff here. So we are doing this piece, So Wonderful, as in so wonderful, or maybe it's so wonderful. Anyway, it's called So Wonderful, and this was written by George Gershwin. The lyrics by Ira Gershwin. Make sure we spell this correctly. Yeah, it looks pretty good to me. And let's see, anything else we want to put here? I guess we can put in the subtitle, because as you see on the PDF, the lead sheet that was sent to you, you put as input by, and then you put your name. So the the bracket here, or the yeah, we'll just call it that for now. As input by, and my name. Whoops, if I could spell my name, that would work. By Chris Shelton. And so we have this part of it set up, and we're going to click next. That will get us to this part of the setup wizard. Now our lead sheet is in cut time, so we can see here that is the second option, the C with the vertical line through it, and our key, we are in E flat for this one, so that is 3 flats. And what do we have next? We have the text here for the initial tempo marking. We have just medium that we're going to type in here, and then our tempo. We have half note equals 100, so I can put that in. There are no pickup measures here, though you know, for future reference, this is where you could set that up while you're setting up your score. The number of measures that we have here, let's see, 3, 24, 25, 26 measures it looks like to me. Yeah, 26 measures, and then I'm going to click finish, and that will put all that information where we need it. I'm going to go ahead and try to cover up the messy desktop that I have there. All right, so now when this opens up, it might be a little small here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Command. If I have, you know, of course I'm using a MacBook here. So if you're using a Mac, you press Command and plus, and that will zoom in on it. And away we go. So what I want to do first is I will show you how you are able to put in, well actually I want to set this up so that we're a little more exact as far as what this looks like. So I'm going to choose, let's see, I'm going to choose, you can choose a few different tools here, but I just want to choose a tool that will allow me to select a few measures here. So here I'm in the measure tool that we can see up here. See measure tool. And what I want to do is I want to set this up so that my first 2 lines have 5 measures apiece, and that the rest of the score has 4. So I'm going to choose here 2, 3, 4, and 5. And to make sure that these are together, I'm going to go to sorry about that, utilities, and I'll be down, I'm going to drag down to fit measures, and then it's going to give me this option. It's going to say lock layout with X, per system. Here it says 4, and for change, I just want to put in current part or score. You have, other options here, so we're just going to leave this as it is. And down here below it, it says, either all measures or just measures 1 through 5. And in this case, this is really important because we're really just dealing with this for measures 1 through 5. Now, we could do measures 1 through 10 if we wanted, because we know the first 2 measures will be set up with 5 per system. But here, just for the sake of being able to show you one more time, I'm going to just set it up 1 through 5. So I'll click OK. And you can see now my top line, my top system has 5 measures. Now, if you missed that the first time, I'll do it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 measures. And now I will do it again. Utilities, drag down to fit measures. We have it set for 5 measures per system. This time it is 6 through 10. I'll click OK, and there we go. Now for the rest of this, I'm going to set it up as we discussed before with 4 measures per system, so I can just select the rest of this. If I didn't mention it before, I'm going to click the first measure that I want to select and then shift click the final measure that I want to select, and it'll select everything in between. I will drag up to utilities one more time, fit measures, and this time we'll change that 5 to 4 measures per system, and this will work from measures 11 through 26. I'll click OK, and there we have it. So now we have the formatting of our score set up, a lot closer to what we want to see the end product be. So now, let's see, what's the next thing we should do? How about we look into the tool so that we're able to put in the repeats. I think it's just repeat tool. Yeah, it's just the repeat tool, interestingly enough. Okay, so what I'm going to do is after clicking on the repeat tool, I'm going to click on this first measure. And now, what should I do? I can double click. That's what I do next. And I need this forward repeat. So if I select that, it's going to give me my repeat in the first measure. Now, where is my back repeat? It is 5, 6, 7, and 8. So it's in the 8th measure. So I have 5 measures on the first line, 6, 7, and this is the 8th measure. So I'm going to double click here while remaining in the repeat tool, and I will choose this time the back repeat. I'll click select, and then it gives me an option here. It's going to say backward, repeat, bar assignment, measure 8, and then it asks repeat action. You want to play this section 2 times? Yes, we do. But for future reference, you can set this up so that, if for some reason you need to play it 3 times or 5 times or however many times you need it to play, then Finale will repeat what's between the repeat symbols, or repeat symbols there, the bar lines, so that you can hear it as many times as you need to hear it before moving on to the next part of the piece. So from here, since we only want to hear it twice, I will click OK, and we'll be good to go there. And just, you can play around with what's in the rest of this sometime later, but you can say, jump, on, pass, whatever. So if you have a particular section that you want it repeated a couple times, and then maybe you're going to start from the beginning and pass it or jump on a particular pass, you can do that there. So it may start from the beginning again, and then once it gets to the repeated section, it'll just skip right over it. So that's something you can work with at a later time. So I'll click OK here, and now that gives me my back repeat. Okay, so far so good. So now, very interesting thing, a very important thing, is the notes. Now, for your situation, you will probably have other stuff available to you so that you'll be able to use Hyperscribe, or maybe you have a setup so that it's easier to use speedy entry. For what I have available to me, unfortunately, I will only be able to use the slow, simple entry here. So at least it'll be deliberate, will it not? Okay, so I will start like this. From the very beginning, we have a dotted quarter note. So in the simple entry palette that we have up here, I click the quarter note, I click the dot, and now I'm going to give myself this B flat. So there we have it. Now, before I move on to the next thing, see, I'm going to click on the 8th note, but you see I still have that dot selected. I don't know, I may have mentioned it to you before. I mean, everything got a little crazy recently, so I don't know what I was able to share with you or what Dr. Ruiz was able to share with you, but once you click on, let's say, a dot or a sharp or a tie or whatever, you see that stays selected no matter what you do. So everything you put in after this will have a dot and a sharp and a tie. So this next pitch that I want to put in is only an 8th note. So I'm going to make sure that that dot is not there, and I'll go ahead and put in that B flat. And then we move along. So I have the dotted half note on G, and that's going to be tied to, got to get rid of that tie to put in my whole note. That'll be tied to the whole note. And then I do this again. Make sure and give myself a tie for the half note, and then put in that whole note there. And then for this one, you know, for that 5th measure, I can just, you know, copy and paste that. So let's see what I can do here. Just copy it, go here, paste it. And all I did there is I went to the measure tool, and then I selected whatever it was I wanted to copy, and I simply used the copy and paste you know, keys for that. So Command C to copy, Command V to paste, and then I gave myself my 5th measure here. So now let's go back to note entry. We have our G that is tied, and then the B flat right after that. And finally, for this part, we have our E, which is a whole note that is tied. Get rid of that tie and give myself the dotted half note. Okay. And then from here we will continue. See, that tie is still there, just to let you know, so I need to get rid of that. I'm sorry, I meant the dot. I was truly talking about that dot. So I got rid of the dot. Now I have the tie, and that will take us to the next part here. Now I get rid of the tie and put in more. Now, I don't want to, let's see. Yeah, I don't want to bore you with putting in this entire thing. So what I'm going to do is just put in a portion of it, and then I'll show you what you need to know for putting in the rest of this. So let's put in one more line, and then we'll move on to articulations and so on. So the next line, I have a D, whole note. Now, I need to put in the next measure, I need to put in a rest. Now, unfortunately, I can't show you. It's in the handout how to put in these rests through using Hyperscribe and Speedy Entry. I will only be able to show you how to put in rests right now using the simple rest palette, I believe it's called. So if I'm in Simple Entry, I'm going to go ahead and close that just to show you where it is. If I go to Window, there's Simple Entry Rests palette down here. Like I think I mentioned before, I know I mentioned this for Logic and GarageBand, and the same thing holds true for Finale. If you are missing something that you want to use, some kind of window that you know pops up or you think might come up that you're just not finding, go to the Window menu at the top of the screen, drag down, and you will most likely find what you're looking for, find what's missing, you know, if you've seen it before. So I closed that Simple Entry Rest palette. I'm going to click on it to open it back up, again, under the Windows menu, or Window menu, and now I have my Simple Entry Rests palette. I need a quarter rest, so I'm going to click on this quarter rest, and I click it in the measure just like I do, you know, a note. So Now I'm going to go back up here, and I'll have to put in my my quarter notes, so D, D, and D. Now for this next measure, I need a dot on the quarter note and A natural, because we're playing that E natural. All right, now we move on to the eighth note. So I have I lost my place. I have another D here. There we go. And now a tied half note also on D before I finish out that line with a whole note D. I'll just tie it to the previous pitch. Let's actually move on and do one more line, just because this particular line, starting with measure 15 down here, does have, some of the articulations and things that, we're going to go ahead and use. So I may as well put that in, right? And in this case, yeah, I can go ahead and copy that and paste it in 15. So I'm going to copy measure 12 and put it in 15. And then we can move on from there with some more D's. Boy, that's a whole lot of D going on. So now I have the dotted quarter, the eighth without the dot, and tied half note, which is tied to the next half note. And then I have the C flat. Okay, so this, obviously is how you are putting in your pitches. Now let's move on to some chord symbols. Now chord symbols in Finale, they're interesting. You might run into some issues, but they're not that difficult to deal with. So I'm going to go to the chord tool, and from this chord tool we will be able to put in what we need to put in. So I'm going to click on the chord tool. You'll see these arrows up here. That points to the line where, of course, your chords will show up. So if I click above this first pitch, which is where our first chord needs to be, you see my cursor starts blinking right on the word medium. So if I type in that chord, it's going to be covered up by the word medium. So that's a little frustrating. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to the main tool palette, and I can click on it's either text tool. Well, text tool will give us all of this other stuff that we can click and work with. This will be, there it is. Okay, so if I'm going to click here on this expression tool, I will be able to click and drag the word medium. And coming with it will be my half note equals 100. And I can move this to simply, place it in a better way to get that out of the way, whatever I need to do there. Okay, so now moving right along, I can get back into my chord tool. And where's the next one? E diminished, which is on, it's right here. So I'll type in E, D, I, M. I can click the space bar. The space bar will just move me to, where I need to type in the next pitch, or where it thinks I need to type in the next chord. And it may be over a pitch, or maybe over just a section of the measure, or, it'll be over rest, something like that. So just make sure, well, make sure you know where you are. I'll keep on clicking here. What do I have here? F minor 7 over B flat. Okay, great. I will hit the space bar again. Now B flat 13. Okay, that worked. E flat. Now when I move to this next, see, it gives me, it's not over a pitch, but it's over the second half of measure 7. I'll type in C7, and I need a flat 9 sharp 5. and then I'll click space, and look what happens. It says, could not find the suffix 7, flat 9, sharp 5. Would you like to add it to the chord suffix library? Certainly, we can do that. We'll just click yes, and then click OK, and off we go. So you can put in whatever chord symbol you need, and you know, it'll be happy to somewhat work with you on that. But at least, you know, if it doesn't recognize something that you've put in, it will give you an error message or an option window, something like that. And then it'll ask you, do you want to add this to the chord library? Because not everything is in the library. And, you know, there are various ways to write chord symbols for the exact same chord. So, you know, I know that half diminished would be one of them, that, you know, some people would call it minor 7 flat 5, and some people would just use a circle with a slash through it, and stuff like that. So that's what you run up against when you're doing chord symbols. So I'll put in just a couple more here. That's mainly what I wanted to show you. F9, and then B flat 7, again with this flat 9, sharp 5. That time it recognized it, because again, we put in the 7, flat 9, sharp 5 before, you know. So, and we put it in exactly that way, just with a different pitch or root of that chord. So now E flat, and I'm just going to finish off this measure, A minor, there's your minor 7 with your flat 5. And it doesn't recognize the minor 7 flat 5 chord. So do you want to add it to your chord suffix library? Yes, we do. We'll click go OK, and there you have it. So that's how you'll put in chords. Now, the next thing I want to show you is how to put in some lyrics. And I'm going to show you primarily really just the first 2 lines here, or the first 2 lines of music rather, because this has, you know, multiple verses, and so, you know, that sometimes that gets a little bit strange when you're trying to do that here, because if you've never done it before, then it's a little odd. So what I'll do here is I need to give myself some room. You can see here that it's pretty cramped. You know, you have the first line, and there's not much room for lyrics before we have our chord symbols. So what I want to do is I'm going to click on the clef tool, or staff tool rather, up here. I'm going to drag down. I'm going to get rid of that rest palette for now. I'm going to drag down here, and I'm going to select all of these. Now when I click and drag, see, it's going to not just move that whole section down, but it's going to create space between all the systems that I have there. So if I want space between the first 2 systems, then it's going to say, okay, let's go ahead and make this look uniform, and we're going to create the same amount of space between each of the other systems that you have here. So if you want everything all cramped up, do this. If you want everything more spacious, or, you know, giving you more space to put your lyrics and so forth, you're going to drag down and see. Now we have our last line closer to the bottom of the page. You know, we can continue with that, do whatever we want. But for our purposes right now, that's good, I think. So now we're going to put in the lyrics. We need to go to the lyric tool. That is right here. It has the little feather pen, you know, the quill there. So I'm going to click here. And now, just like the chord tool, it shows me a box with some arrows that point down to this area. That's where my lyrics are going to show up. So I'm going to click here, and then there's my cursor, just like using the chord tool. So with this, let's see. So I'm going to say W-O-N, and then there's a space, or I'm sorry, a dash rather. So instead of a space, I'm going to click the dash, and then that will move me to the next syllable, where I will press dash again, and F-U-L with the exclamation mark, and then space. And you see what's happened there. It looks like everything was delayed a little bit. I put in a dash. We didn't see it until I was, you know, done typing in the second syllable there. So they're there, but, you know, it may take you know, one more step to actually see them. So that's how you can put this stuff in. So let's move on. I'm just going to put in, like I said, a little bit of this. -OUS, and screaming that one as well. Okay, great. And we move on to, there we go. You should care. It, as you can notice here, it does, things will get on top of themselves until it has a moment to sort of refresh. So once it refreshes the screen, then it will, do sort of a mini reformat, so that if it's, you're typing one thing on top of another, then they'll actually move out of each other's way. And then we have what? 4. Nope, that was wrong. It's on the wrong pitch. I have to move to the next. Now it's 4. And then me, also shouting that. Okay. So we have that first line in. Now what I want to do is I want to put in lyrics, verse 2. So I'm still in the lyrics tool. I'm going to go up to the top of the screen here, click on lyrics, and I will drag down to specify current lyric. And here you see verse, you see type is verse, number is 1. That's not what we want. We want 2 because this is verse 2. If you had more verses, obviously you would continue on this same way to get more lines for your verses. So number could be 3, 4, 5, whatever the case may be. In our case, we only have 2. So I'm going to click OK. And you can see now these arrows move down a little bit. So what I want to do here, now we have to go back up to the top. I'm going to click here, and now my cursor is just below verse 1. So now I'm going to type this in. Oops, there's no... Okay. And moving right along. Whoops. Dice. And then we will move to the last part of this. What I love. And then we just have a 2 here, because what happens at this point is you'll go back up to this pitch where you continue. So you're singing this, wonderful, so marvelous, you should care for me. We're going to repeat, it's awful nice, it's paradise, it's what I love to, and then C starts what is, it's actually on the pitch C. So that's what a coincidence. So the word C will be here. So, I may as well put that in, specify current lyric, and I'm going to go back to 1, click OK, and I'll say C, and there you have it. And from there, of course, you would continue on. The rest of this, as you look at the lead sheet, is just, one line from here on. Okay, so now we are going to put in the articulations. So what do we have here? We have some staccato markings. Where do I find those staccato markings? Well, this might be a good place to look right here under the articulation tool, which is the whole note with the accent above it. So what I'll do here is, let's see, I think it's in measure 15 where this happens. I'm going to I'm going to click once here. And I'm going to click here is 7 with my with the line. It's more of a it's a held out, or more of kind of a legato sound, I guess. I will go to the next pitch and click it, and now I need 1 staccato marking. You can see here all of this stuff that's available under the articulation tool. So, any of the stuff that you may need. This is where you'll go, this style of stuff. So I'm going to select here, and now I've got my staccato, and then I continue on here with the lines that I have to work with. Be careful with this, because if you double click, like if you double click here, then depending on where you are, you could have some interesting things happen. Basically, just getting the wrong marking is really all. I mean, it's not too interesting, I guess, but you want to make sure you don't get the wrong thing. Now, another one to look at here would be the fermata at the end. So let me go ahead and I'll just put in this in the last measures here. This E, which is tied to this dotted half. And from here, then I'll need to go back into the articulation tool, and we see this fermata here. I'll click select, and there it is. Now, when you put in something like this, you see there are these little, they call them handles, they're little boxes, and when they're selected, when you click and select them, you can move it around a little bit, move it up, down, wherever you need it to go. So for some reason, if you need this to be further away from the staff, you can make it so. The same thing with all of these. Like I said, it's articulations, whatever you're putting in, you can move that stuff around and do whatever you need to do there to make it look exactly how you want it to look. Okay. Let's see what else I can show you here. I think at this point I think that's about everything, honestly. One other thing that I wanted to show is I want to get back into this text tool. Let's say for some reason you are on autopilot and you type in as input by, and you put my name or your cat's name or something weird like that, or you just misspell your own name like I did when I was first putting this in. So what I want to do here is I'll double click on that handle, and this will allow me to change this stuff, so I can do something ridiculous like that, or if it was misspelled, or if I did that in the first place, I can just retype my name in. The same thing with over here, with George Gershwin. I can put that in. Here, I don't see Ira Gershwin as the lyricist, so I can double click here where it says arranger and just type in Ira Gershwin. Now, you'll see on the lead sheet itself, it says lyrics by. So I can go ahead and type this in, colon there, and that's set up. Now I have my lyrics by Ira Gershwin. I can double click on George Gershwin. I think it's music by, and there we go. Now you see that, just like we talked about before, this is a little cramped here. The F minor 7 is really too close to what's going on. So I can click or make sure that I select the handles for George and Ira Gershwin, and I'll just move those up a little bit. And there you have it. So I believe that is everything that you'll need that you'll need actually to complete this lead sheet. So if there are any questions, you know how to get in touch with me, just on Canvas, email me. And of course I'm available and we'll be able to help you out. So there you have it.